Welcome back to part 5 of this class of 1974 Honda XL70 project. Since we last talked, I'm going to be honest with you, I had some pretty big plans, and things have really taken a turn in a different direction. So every time I turned around, something else came up, and it's literally been all-out war on the gas tank and a couple other pieces. So, you know, I just can't do this any other way. I'm gonna have to do it right. So it's gonna take more time than I hope. So we're probably a few more videos away from taking a ride on this thing. But, you know, the first thing I had to do once I cracked things open was I needed to check the work order.
New base gasket, whole top end's been redone, new overflow lines, new fuel lines.
All right, so I read through the work order, and you know, it was not good. There's probably about 80 hours worth of work that needs to be done here, and about 80 parts need to be ordered or more. So I got a hold of my shop supervisor, Richard, told him what was going on. He contacted the parts manager, who's also Richard. He put in a big old parts order for us, and I think we've got everything we need now. All right, getting back to business. I do owe you an apology. I apologize for this hat. If you don't like Mopars, sorry. I own a couple. But, you know, I ordered a Honda hat from some guy on some hoarder group on Facebook, and I don't know where that is, but maybe one day I'll have a Honda hat. So, getting back to the gas tank, like I said, it's been all-out war. I thought I was just going to get away with some vinegar, but if you watched me dump that thing out in that bucket on the last video, you know that it was probably a much bigger project than just a little bit of vinegar soak. So, you know, we're at the point now where it's cooking. It's cooking with some Evaporust. This is good stuff. It's biodegradable, and you can usually use it multiple times. But it takes time, and you know, we're gonna get to that here later at the end of the video. It's cooking right now. So, you know, using Evaporust is on the tank is, you know, that gallon can right there is almost $30, and I've done a lot of projects for other people, you know, kind of preservation deals where I've used a lot of that, and you know, it's hard to kind of explain to them that stuff costs money. You know, it's not just your time, it's not just the parts, but it's all those supplies you have to use as well. So think about that when you jump into some of these projects. If you're going to get the results you really want, it's going to cost you a little bit of money for those consumable supplies. Once we get done cooking it with Evaporust, you'll see, I'm going to show you a couple videos of the challenges we had with the tank. We're going to put this POR 15 gas tank liner in there. It's been used by many people with great results. Before we can do that, though, we've got a couple things we've got to run through there. It's got a cleaner degreaser product, and then a metal prep product which basically etches the surface of the metal. So let me jump you into that video real quick. Kind of the challenges that we're facing there. All right, guys, here's our first look at this gas tank fiasco. If you watched the last video, you saw the rust cloud that I was enveloped in. Since then, I've soaked it several times with vinegar and maybe some uric acid. But I kind of misspoke. I thought there wasn't any rust through, but I was wrong. And a couple days ago, one of my 1 million subscribers happened to stop by my house, Dave, and I wanted to show him what I discovered. So I proudly proclaimed that, hey, look at this. I found some rust through, and he's like, oh yeah? I said, turn that thing over. So I did. And then we found this, which you see those black dots, that's pinholes. And I said, no, that's not a leak. He's like, well, yeah, because you got old eyes and you don't ever wear your glasses. And he's right. I don't hardly ever wear my glasses unless I'm trying to read something. So a little bit more work than we expected, but I've got a plan. Here's how this process begins. So I've marked out the areas that have the pinholes, sanded it for hours with 40 grit sandpaper, and we're going to start with a little bit of that on the outside, and then we're going to finish up with a little bit of that. All right, we'll get back to that gas tank later. In the meantime, I want to talk to you a little bit about the side covers on the engine. Once I pulled that engine out in that last video for this full frame-off restoration, I started digging a little deeper and opening things up because I needed to. And, I'm going to drop a clip here real quick for you to look at. All right, guys. Trying to refurbish these side covers, and apparently after opening this clutch cover up, this has been, I guess, living at the bottom of a lake or something. I've never seen anything like that before. So as you can see, that clutch cover it's the worst thing I've ever seen inside of a clutch cover on a manual 4-speed 70cc Honda engine. But we got her cleaned up, and as you can see here, I just couldn't leave well enough alone. Unfortunately, it required Richard to order a bunch more parts. And you can see, we've got the parts here. He's looking at them like, yeah, there you go, dummy. Just keep buying stuff. But either way, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to do it right. And we're kind of, as I've mentioned in that gas tank clip, we're beyond preservation here. We haven't quite reached restoration, and I hope not to get there. We're kind of at a refresh-toration. Hopefully that's a new term that kind of picks up a little bit of steam on the internet. We'll see. So I'm going to bring you in for a close-up look at these side covers and show you kind of what we've done so far. All right, guys, here we are for a little close-up look. So like I said, I couldn't leave well enough alone. So I went ahead and cleaned these things up, and well, as you can see, had to give them a fresh coat of Honda Cloud Silver. And yes, I know this stator cover is not the correct cover for this bike, but it's the one I had, and you got to draw that line in the sand somewhere, right? So it'll work. It bolts on fine. Just doesn't have the, normally you'd have a screw-on cover here so you can pull this off and check your points and your timing. In this case, you just got to pull the whole cover off. Also, this cover that goes over the clutch mechanism here. Again, this was rough, but I went ahead and just painted it as well. Just it was one of them deals where didn't see the point in spending the money on something that was really not a functional part. And I see a lot of questions on the internet, like, what's the correct color for Honda silver paint? It's Honda Cloud Silver, and you can still buy it. It's called Honda Touch-Up Paint Cloud Silver. You can Google it. You can get it on the Jungle Store. There's several other websites that sell it. I like to buy it from boats.net. That's the cheapest place I've found it, and I'll drop a link in the description for you if you're interested in picking that up. Give you one of my little secrets. But I'll warn you ahead of time, it's pricey. You're going to be pushing close to 30 bucks a can for this stuff, but it's worth it. It's the right color, and it's very, very durable. So next thing I want to do is I want to kind of walk you through putting this clutch mechanism together. You saw how bad it was in that other clip. So let me get things kind of situated here and get some stuff, and we'll do this real quick. Okay, let's jump right into this. I don't think I've ever seen a YouTube video on YouTube on how to assemble this manual clutch 4-speed side cover for these 70cc engines. I could be wrong, but if not, I guess this will be the first. So you saw how nasty this was earlier, and it's worth noting that none of the parts that function inside of here that you can see when you pull this cover off are soaked in oil. So the shaft here for the clutch arm receives some oil. There's a little push rod that goes in here that receives some oil. But this area is not bathed in oil when the engine is running, or, you know, ever for that matter. So you saw those pictures earlier, and here's the parts. I cleaned them up, soaked them in that Evaporust stuff I told you about. They're not pretty, but they're still there, and we're going to use those. But what we're going to do is we're going to coat that stuff generously with grease, because we don't want that to ever happen again. And we've also got a couple seals that need to go in, and like I told you, you know, I can't stress this enough: new hardware, new seals. This stuff's available. This little pile of stuff you see right here was not that much money. It was probably $10 for everything. So first thing we're going to do is put the seals in. So we need a seal for the kickstart shaft, and we need a seal for the clutch push rod. And I've got both of them here. And just so you know, like, normally I don't purchase individual seals, but I didn't have these. What's nice about these seals is if you look them up on like Partzilla or something like that, it tells you the size of the seal. It gives you the outside diameter, the inside diameter, the thickness, and if you look really close at them, it has those numbers on there so you can identify them. Because I typically purchase these seals in sets, and then I end up with a bunch of leftover ones I didn't use. I've got to try to figure out what they go to. So that's a good tip for you. If you find yourself with a bunch of leftover seals, you can go in and identify them, because it's really hard to kind of tell otherwise. So same thing with these seals. We need to kind of generously coat them with some grease, and before we put them in there, I'm going to do that real quick. And as you know, I don't like getting my hands dirty. Got my hands dirty plenty enough at my age. No reason to do that now. All right, got these seals kind of greased up and ready to go. So the easiest thing you can do, this is the kickstart seal. Go ahead and kind of get it started in there. And then we all got sockets. Deep well's your best bet, so you can hold on to it. Find you a socket that's just a bit smaller than that seal, and just kind of center that on there and tap it in. You'll know when it's in all the way, because you'll kind of feel it bottom out, and you'll hear the sound change. So I'll stick this clutch push rod seal in there, and you know, I hope I don't have to tell you this, but if you look at these up close, on the back side you see that little slot. That's the back. That's the side that faces the engine. Sometimes you can push these in almost all the way with your hand, which that one I was able to do. So all right, there we go. Okay, so I think the next thing we want to do is install this little push rod deal. When you're doing this, if you look on the back side of your cover, you'll see there's an opening over here, and that opening actually connects to a little oil passage that's down inside of here. That's what keeps this lubricated. And what I did is I just took some air and blew through there to make sure that it was, you know, open. Because if you saw the vid, like I said, if you saw the video earlier, you could understand why that may not be open. But we're good to go here. So I'm going to grease this up and put that in real quick. That goes in from the back side, or the inside, if you want to call it that. And there's a little tab on that push rod that fits into a slot. You can't get it in there without getting it in that slot. So that should be fairly straightforward. Okay, guys, let's put this together. So you've got a couple pieces have to go in there. This one goes in first, and then this deal here with the little tangs goes in on top of that with the tangs down. I'm going to grease those up real good first before I put them in there. Go ahead and drop that in. Make sure that it's sitting level when you drop it in. And then we'll grease this guy up real quick. And I'm putting more grease than's probably needed on these, only to keep them from possibly getting moisture and rusting again, like you saw in the previous clip. That drops right in there. Now, there's a screw that goes in there. It's an M6 GIS head screw, M6 by, I don't know, 15 or 16 or so. So every single one of these I've ever tore apart, that screw was not coming out, and I had to drill it. And if you, again, what you saw earlier, obviously I had to drill this one, but I got it out. Everything's good. The thing is you can't buy those screws anywhere that I've found. So what I did is I sourced some stuff online and picked up this. It's a hex head rather than a GIS screw, but it's the right size, and I've had good luck with these. Never had a problem with them. So sometimes that's what you got to do. You can't find all this stuff. So it's not like this is a part that anybody's ever going to see. So, you know, as far as people that are like, oh, that's not original. Okay, whatever. If you want to pop that little cover off and check that, by all means, be my guest. All right, so we got that in there. And we're ready to put the clutch arm in. Again, there's an oiling passage that goes up to this clutch arm, but there's also an O-ring that goes right here. So we're going to install that real quick. Again, Honda parts. So if you're paying close attention, there's a hole here where the end of that spring goes. It's pretty self-explanatory if you've got one of these in front of you, but just wanted to point that out. Okay, we got that arm in there. Last thing we need to do is put the pin in that goes right here that keeps that arm from walking itself back out. And you're probably not going to be able to see this, but there is a little pin in my hand. And this is another one of those things that I have not found a source for these. I'm sure somebody's selling them, but if I can't find one, you almost probably need to assume that it's going to be hard to find. When you look at this clutch arm, you'll know when it's pretty much in there as far as it needs to go, and you'll see that there's a little slot that will appear in this hole, and that's where that pin goes. And you see it doesn't, we're not quite where we need to be. There it goes. You see it just dropped in. And then this cover right here, that's going to hold that pin in. So now I'm going to put a little pressure on the backside of this to kind of simulate the fact that we would have a clutch. And you can see how this works. See that? It's pushing on that push rod. So at this point, everything's buttoned up and we're ready to put that cover on. So let me go to clean mode here with the gloves. Just slap this on there real quick. Again, this is the cover we reused and threw some fresh paint on it. It's normally a bare metal deal, but I wasn't going to spend $15 on this. So, but I did splurge for the new hardware. So we'll pop that on there real quick. All right, so there you go. That is a 70cc horizontal Honda engine clutch side cover assembled for the manual 4-speeds. We're ready to move on here. We're still waiting on that gas tank. It's still cooking. So you know, I can't just let time pass by without doing something. So I've dove into the fenders and done a few things here and there with them. The back sides of them were extremely rusty, and there really wasn't any paint color left on the back side. So I did a couple things. This is a front fender, obviously. I need to bring you in for a closer look, but kind of show you real quick what I did. Getting ready to do a little bit of cleanup work on the back side of this fender. It was pretty rusty. So we protected the top side well. It's basically what you'd call a Christmas special fender now.
Are these Christmas specials? No.
All right, guys. It's not a Christmas special anymore. It's back to that orange bronze color. Candy Topaz orange. What I did is I went in and I carefully taped off the edges of this, cleaned this up really good, and hit it with a little bit of semi-gloss black paint. Might look glossy on camera, but it's not. It's semi-gloss. That will hopefully stop it from rusting and, you know, give it a little better aesthetics when you're looking at it. And then here's the bracket for the front fender. It attaches like this, but here's what's interesting about this. Again, getting back to that orange bronze color. If you know anything about Candy Topaz orange, you know that's a two-stage paint color process. It starts out with a silver paint, and then the candy orange goes over the top of that silver paint. Well, if you look at how this bracket's attached, you can't ever see the bottom of it. But here's what's interesting. Look at that. It's still silver. So they only painted the top side of this bracket. And this is one of them, it's like opening a time capsule, one of those many mysteries of how Honda built these bikes back then in the late 60s, early 70s, mid 70s. You know, kind of like, really? Like they didn't paint the backside? I'd really like to know what the process was. Kind of like the Flying Dragon Honda 350, 450 tanks. If you're familiar with those, nobody really knows how they did that, but it certainly wasn't hydro dipped because it's paint. So just a few interesting things. We're getting there slowly but surely. Okay, folks, we're there. The gas tank's done cooking. See, I got it back up on the table here. This was no small task, but we are ready to put this 415 tank liner in now. I just want to real quick, I'm going to run you through all the stuff that went on here. Started out with vinegar, followed that up with muriatic acid, followed that up with Evaporust, and then followed by the two products that come with the tank. kit, the cleaner, degreaser, and then the metal prep. I'm going to take you down in here now up close, and we're going to go through putting this liner in real quick. All right, guys, here we are. As you can see, I've taken a few precautions, put down some plastic. I've Christmas specialed out the gas tank, Christmas special gloves, because the word is you don't want this poor 15 liner going anywhere except for in the tank, and if it goes somewhere else, I guess it's hard to get off. I even made myself a little cardboard funnel, assuming that if I used one of my good funnels, I'd have to throw it away later. So they say not to shake this stuff. They tell you to stir it until it's all one uniform color. So let me stir this up real quick. Okay, I've also sealed off the petcock opening with a piece of Gorilla Tape. If you don't know what that is, it's kind of like duct tape on steroids. So I've got this mixed up, and I guess it's time. Go ahead and pour it in. Dribbled a little bit there. I want to get that off. Okay, so they tell you to seal that top off and rotate this around for a little bit. So we'll do that next. Gorilla Tape. All right, see what we can do. I'm not gonna make you live through this whole process in real time. Okay, I've been rotating this around quite a bit longer than what it appeared to look like on camera. And they tell you to just drain the product right back into the can that you got it from, because once you use it, that's it. So we're going to use the petcock opening as a drain and get this stuff out of here, hopefully. I rotated the tank in a way that I made sure that I got all the liquid over on this side, so hopefully it all drains out fairly easily. We shall see. If I can get this Gorilla Tape off. There we go. There it goes. Ooh, found some more. Probably understand why I put the plastic down now. All right, that pretty much takes care of that. Let me clean this mess up and wrap this video up for y'all. Okay guys, got that mess cleaned up. That was no fun. But I think, you know, you're supposed to wait 4 days before you even mess with that, and we're not putting gas in this thing for a while, so we should be good. But I think that's gonna about do it for part 5. I appreciate you sticking through this one with me. I know we've covered a lot of ground. It's been a little longer than usual, but hopefully you picked up a few tips and tricks along the way. Next video, there's no telling what we might get done. I feel like we're kind of on the home stretch now. A lot of the tedious little items are getting checked off the list. So As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.